Hello, folks. Well, appears the auto redirect did not work correctly, but we are here, and of course the music is completely broken. Okay, so let's see here. How are we doing on concurrent viewers? We are at 13. So we're going to give folks a few moments to file in, and I will keep getting them to come over here. So here, so today's been an interesting day for a lot of reasons, as you can maybe imagine. This video was not supposed to drop until Monday, and then Dave's Garage put a video up, and that really just threw a monkey wrench in my plans, because if you know anything about how the algorithm works, if one large channel does a video and one small channel does it, it prevents the small channel from getting basically any traffic. This has happened to me before by accident. So it has to be published now or not at all. So it's kind of been a little crazy. And I figured there's a lot of questions, so forth and so on. Although it does appear that we have lost quite a few of our viewers from the previous one to the other because YouTube live streams are a bit iffy. So if we go over to full screen mode, and let's get OBS. I have so many windows juggling, it's not even funny. I actually have the Itanium system up on our desktop. So let's see if I can get this to play nicely. Text box, go away. You switch over to our desktop. Okay, yeah, that's good enough. So we have Windows on Itanium here. So, yeah. You know, it helps if you log in. Yeah. So I've been sitting next to my Itanium system, this entire thing, and this thing puts out a stupid amount of heat. Because Itanium goes through power like, I don't know. The power supply is rated for 500 watts. And it's a really, really anemic system. So, as you can see here, XP 64-bit edition version 2003. It does actually identify somewhat separately, and hopefully my audio does sound good. I really haven't managed to test it, because when I got up this morning, this is what my Discord was. Dave's Garage has released a video. Dave's Garage has released a video. Oh man, NCommander's video is irrelevant. Like, there was just a wall of this on my Discord. So, it was kind of insane. So, I've had this system before. For people who have watched my streams in the past, you'll know that I've shown this. And you can see here, you know, it's an ACPI IA64. It does have a sound card. It's a creative card, if I remember correctly, but I've never been able to find a driver for it. I don't know if the card came from HP or if was installed otherwise. It works great under Linux. So, yeah. So, to give you an idea, I cut this out of the video, but this is just a small portion of the number of pinball binaries I went through in trying to put this whole story together. Like, here's the one from XP 2003 for Itanium, which works as long as I launch the ball manually, because this is our desktop. Yeah, see, like it. Okay, figures that time it works. Yeah, see this, but this plays just fine. And this was actually the first version of pinball I did look at. I know I said in the video that I looked at the XP 2016, the 2002 version, but I tried to install that, realized it didn't work, and then I tried this, and then just went all completely crazy. It's just nuts. Nux, I'll have to pull the system open and see what's actually in there. This system is really irritating to take apart. To get to the PCI cage, I have to pull the lid. I have to take all the plastic inserts. I have to disconnect quite a few cables, and then the cage rocks out. It's 6 screws, and it's literally layers upon layers to get all those things done. It looks like we're about to run out of fuel. So, yeah. So this was one of the first versions of pinball I looked at. And if we look at the build number, this is build 3790, which is... So I had a lot of things I left on the cutting room floor, but if we look at WinVer, the build number is 3790 Server 2003 because XP 2003 64-bit edition is really Server 2003 with the serial numbers filed off, which you can tell by looking at the symbol files. And I just realized I am not recording this stream. Okay. Whoops. It's been one of those days. It has really been one of those days. So it's fine. YouTube will get part of it. So this was the first version I really started looking at. And, well, second version. I looked at the AMD 64 ones, but when I got the Itanium hardware working, this is where I started. And then I looked at the RTM one, and you can see it crash a desktop. Let's pull up WinDebug so I can show things. I always find WinDebug very hard to use. Maybe it's just me, but it is what it is. So if we pull up XP RTM and then go. Yeah, so you can see in the call stack here, it loads up a bunch of collision elements. And if you step through this, it will actually load quite a few things correctly and then fail over right here with the edge manager. And then if we look at the disassembly, let's switch to disassembly. Let me dock you somewhere. You can see that it does a lot of vectors and other floating point operations, but Itanium assembly is so difficult to deal with. It's really, really difficult to understand what's going on. Like, I couldn't even find a good reference guide to Itanium assembly. There used to be a decent one. I actually think Raymond Chen wrote it, but I couldn't find it. And even that guy doesn't really have a good quick reference to all the opcodes. So, like, I'd have to flip through the Intel programming manual to see what BR call SPR many, because Itanium does some very interesting stuff with branch prediction. It's completely immune to Spectre and Meltdown as a result, but it's also entirely impossible to debug the damn thing. So, it's interesting. It's interesting in so many crazy ways. So that's basically what it, yeah. Nux, that is basically what it is. Itanium is DSP, the home processor version. And Intel had some ridiculous plans for this. They planned it for use in servers. They planned it in desktop computers. They even planned it in laptops. A lot of the brain damage that was Pentium 4 was due to NetBurst. And if you look at NetBurst, it really is just an Itanium core with an x86 decoder. It's madness. It's madness all the way down. You know, and like, I don't know offhand if, like I'm hoping that, you know, Dave's Garage or Raymond Chen might see my video and might actually look into this, because when I started looking into this, I came to a lot of conclusions, and I actually should pull up my scripts so I can show you what I was doing it. I normally make my scripts available to Patreons, but I'm going to bend this a little bit and talk about it on stream. So, yeah, okay, here's the Google Doc, and let's go full screen. Okay, so this is the script file that I used. You can kind of see it goes on for a while. I cut a lot of things out of the final version of this video. This is where the voiceover ends here on page 10. So I've got 7 pages that I deleted. And if you want to see the whole thing, it's available to Patreon. Oop, that's me kicking the camera. Available to Patreons. But like, one of the things I talked about at length in one of the earlier versions of this was I thought it might have been a source control accident, because I ended up tracing broken and working builds of pinball across versions. And originally I thought the Longhorn builds of Pinball and were broken. Like if I go into Pinball and I try and load LH4 4051, it doesn't start. What I discovered much later was that Longhorn binaries only run on Longhorn. And not only do they not only run on Longhorn, you actually need them in program files, Windows NT Pinball, or it will not run. And it was when I discovered this, I had to rewrite half my script. I was not amused by this, because originally I thought that it had been fixed. So if we look at the Windows build numbers, let's see here. Just catching up on chat. Nikolai Kimchuk, I hope I said that correctly. Hello. Yep. Not a random count. So basically, building a program for Windows on Itanium is actually not very different from building it from regular Windows. I actually have the development environment set up. Because I had to do checks with the things you didn't see in this video could be 2 videos in and of itself. Let me see if I still have that video. Yes, I do. So the official way you were supposed to do Windows on Itanium programming was you were supposed to cross compile. So this is a server 2003 VM. I turned Luna on because I felt nostalgic. But basically what you would do, and let's take this full screen so you can actually see what I'm doing. Let's see here, VM view, server 2003. So if we go into the SP, so if we go into open build environment Windows, you can see we have a 2003 server, 64-bit, and then you have IA64 and X64. So if I pulled this up, and then we end up with a version of CL that cross-compiles to IA64. Now, if you had Visual Studio 2000, it was 2002 and later that supported this. It was not in the original Visual Studio 6. If you installed the Platform Sdk after you installed Visual Studio, you could integrate Itanium support. You had to have professional or higher. And then you can build it as a normal target. But it's a little bit hit or miss. For anyone who's ever compiled for Windows CE, you know exactly what I'm talking about here. Yes, and Nux is correct. Visual Studio does in fact check that it's running on if it's running on Itanium and will refuse to install. I think it is possible to install the Platform Sdk though. You know what? Let's find out. We've got everything here. We can actually just see if it works. So let's pull up. Let's see here. So this would be in my retro folder. Let's see here. I believe I've got the Platform Sdk in here. Sometime today. Networking. Bueller. Yeah. The few times I've done Itanium development, I have generally used the Platform Sdk. I find it's... Oh, for the love of... I have some permission issues, apparently. Let me fix those. I've been having problems with my Samba setup for the last few weeks. I just haven't been... I haven't had the motivation to fix it. I really should just suck it up and do it. Alright, let's see here. I know there's ways with Samba to force it. There we go. And, right, I have to make it executable because permissions being permissions plus X. Oh, no, that's because that's an ISO. That doesn't help me at all because I can't install Alcohol 128 on this. So, I've gotten Samba to work. It just requires kind of pulling teeth to get it work. But there's a lot of weird oddities if we take a closer look at this. Like, I mentioned this in passing in the video. Like, if we go into classic view and then go to add remove, Pinball cannot be removed from this version of Windows because of the mistake they made in the installer file, which is why I think Raymond Chen originally removed it and then someone else re-added it, but they re-added it incorrectly. I could extract I could mount the CD and then I could load it over Samba. I'm not planning on trying to build NetHack for Itanium tonight. This is not a thing that I want to do, because last time we ended up trying building NetHack for a platform. I built the compiler, I built the cross compiler, I cross compiled the cross compiler to Slayer. I haven't quite recovered from that stream. There were layers to that particular onion. So there are a couple things I didn't note. Like, one thing about the Itanium version of Windows is it does run, let's see here, do I have it on here? I guess I could show this. Like, 32-bit applications run just fine. They do run with a performance penalty, and it's a fairly hefty one, but I've never found a good way to benchmark that. It's been one of those things I've been really, really wanting to do. It's just, I'd have to get the compiler out, I'd have to get benchmark tools done, and more. Microsoft actually made it fairly easy to support Itanium. The largest problem was that there was never any Express version for it. So instead of having, so you'd have to have a paid version of Visual Studio. And, oh, nope, not hitting the start button does not help. And yeah, you need a paid version of Visual Studio, and there was never not Cygwin or MinGW. There was, however, something much more interesting, and this is something I noticed. I don't know if I can install it on this version. You can, on Server 2008, Subsystem for Unix is installable on Itanium. Like, they cut everything else out of the Itanium port, but they left that. I don't think it's here. I think it was a separate CD in this version, and I don't think I have it. The problem is that it tries to download an online component and really didn't work all that well. So Nux. So there is hardware support on the Itanium processor die for x86 decoding. In fact, some Merced systems can actually boot a 32-bit operating system. Microsoft never used it in any of their operating systems. All versions of Windows, to my knowledge, at least XP 2003 uses software emulation because it is so slow. There was the Intel Linux IA32EL package that could enable it on Red Hat Linux on RHEL 5, the one version that had an Itanium port. So I've never gotten around to installing it. I probably should. I've sort of been tempted to try and install HP Unix, but that's kind of annoying. It's kind of annoying to go down that road. There's licensing headaches I need to deal with if I want to do that, and this machine does not officially support HP Unix, although in practice it probably will work, although I might have to install a system management board. So maybe. I mean, the main reason I haven't covered OpenVMS on this channel is due to the Hobbyist PAX license. For those who aren't familiar, Hobbyist PAX are the OpenVMS uses special license files called PAX files, and there's a special hobbyist program that they offer but the terms for it are so restrictive on the hobbyist one that I don't think I could even do a video on it. Like, I ran into that problem with compiling Word for Windows, but I could get away with not monetizing that video. I'm not sure I could even do that with the hobbyist PAX license. And quite frankly, I don't want to spend weeks on a video just to have it taken down. And it happens. It's sort of the reason why I haven't covered some products from a company that other longtime watchers of my streams know that I don't like. So let me take a sip. Yeah. On the whole, so one of the things that really should amaze you is that this is, at its heart, this is Server 2003. This is exactly the same thing. But if you try and install the Service Pack for Service Pack 2003, it actually has an intentional blacklist that prevents you from doing it. Like if where would it be? I think it's in my retro folder. I didn't put it in betas because God knows I've done a lot of things. Yeah, here it is. This is the, like if you try and install the Service Pack 2 upgrade, because XP 2003 edition never got it, even though it uses the same symbol files, it will error out once it completes the full extraction. I'm pretty sure I could get it to work if I fiddled with the Landman NT variable. But even Server 2008 for Itanium is missing bits. Like, if I remember correctly, if you run DC promo on Server 2008, it says, oh, this is not supported on Itanium, and just quits. Like, that's it. I don't run Server 2008 very often. Having Server 2008 installed, oh man, I couldn't get the graphics card to work at all. We saw part of that in the video, but that was the maximum functionality I got out of it. The networking adapters, because there's two separate ones, didn't work at all. I had to take the XP CD and manually extract, like if we go into network adapters, you can see there's both the Broadcom and the net server. I had to extract these drivers manually off the XP CD, and that's how I got our desktop working. It's just a completely broken port. It is astounding they shipped it in that condition. I also need to go through and dump the firmware off this Radon card, because apparently this is a fairly unique firmware because it has the Itanium firmware on it. I just never found a good way to do it, and I don't want to desolder the chip to do it. I do not have the ILO board for this system. So if we go back to full screen streaming, I'll go into a little more details about this. So if you have a ZX6000 that is not in my ZX6000, let's see here. This is what it's supposed to look like. It's supposed to have these nice plastic things. Yeah, hold on. Actually, let me go back one. Because this was a better screenshot. This is what it looked like. In fact, this is what mine looked like when I originally got it. Moving companies were not particularly kind to this system. It has been smashed quite badly. You don't really see it on the camera, but there's a dent in the top lid, and I've had to do a lot of repairs to keep this system going. It's been moved cross-country 4 times. It got stored in a storage unit that got flooded. Amazingly, it was above the waterline. So it's not had a particularly good life. I've been kind of keeping an eye on eBay to see if someone sells a dead one that I could salvage for new case pieces. Surprisingly, aside from the 2 memory sticks I took out of it, it all works. And the hard drive that just went to heaven. But that's just a standard SCSI hard drive, so that's not that hard to replace. So, while it's ugly as sin, it does work. But the ZX6000, what it really is it's really, what is it? Well, let me put it to you this way. This is the same machine. Like, this is completely the same machine. This is the Integrity RX 2600. It runs the same firmware. It runs the same everything. In fact, there's even a picture on the inside. And if you just saw my video, this might look familiar. You know, I just realized my face is in the way. This might look familiar. Like, this might look like the same blasted machine. So, yes. So, if I could find the ILO card, and it was sold separately for this machine, and that is the first block of the day. Okay. Let's see here. I don't get why people come into my, subscribe to my channel and just come to make comments about Richard Stallman. It's just annoying. Sorry, I have debated taking down that video from time just because of the constant harassment, but sorry, we're getting off topic. So yeah, so that's the ZX6000 story. I've also had problems that this system pulls a ridiculous amount of power. I don't have the kilowatt meter on it, but it pulls something like 300 to 350 watts while idling. And if I have it going flat out, it gets something stupid. When I was still working at Canonical, I actually ran Ubuntu for Itanium on this. And yes, that was an actual thing. I was registered user number 5 on PopCon. And I compiled SETI at home on it. And it was interesting. You know, the word that you should never, that is never good. Like, I'm sort of tempted to take the SETI at home client and see if I can get it running on Itanium again. Because I remember I had to do some contortions to get it running on Linux. But Microsoft's C compiler was actually quite a bit better than GCC. And when I say quite a bit, I mean like tortoise versus hare. So I actually am a bit curious on how fast SETI at home would run under XP 2003, 2008. Yeah. Elsie, thank you for the $5 Canadian super chat. That will definitely go to the Diet Coke fund, because trust me, a lot of Diet Coke was consumed in the process of this video. Yeah, like, I was not planning on streaming today. Normally, I like to have my videos go out to Patreons, and they have them for 72 to 96 hours, and then I release them the first weekday past that. But when Dave's Garage video went up, it has to go out or it doesn't happen. There are some things I've wanted to look into this. Like, I've kind of wanted to look into net booting with the ZX6000, because there is surprisingly a Pixie implementation on its UEFI stack. But well, here, let me show you what the problem is. And the reason why the CD-ROM drive is iffy. I got it working again, but it has problems with DVDs. It will, for the most part, read a CDR, but it doesn't like CDRWs, even though it's new enough that should not be a problem, which kind of makes me think the laser is going, and God help me, I don't think I'll ever find a replacement laser for it. Hold on, let me switch my VM view. So that is not the VM view I was looking for. So if I switch to Server 2008, so here's my Server 2008. So one of the big things you can do in Server 2008 is you can remote deploy Windows. So, and there's two ways to do it. You can do it with Deployment Services or Windows Deployment Services Legacy. So you can tell it to respond, yada, yada, yada. But if you put in the Windows CD for Itanium to actually do this, let me find it. Well, you'll see what happens. It just kind of blows up. And yet this is supposed to be supported, which makes me think I'm missing a service patch. Even though I installed all the ones I could find. Let's see here. Where are my XP on Itanium CDs? I have a dedicated folder for them that I, of course, cannot find. Here it is. Yeah, so if I put this in, so this would be XP 2003. Yeah, so I put the CD in. It says image name. It completely identifies it correctly. And then it even says hardware platform IA64 based. And then it's going to fail in about 3 seconds. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. That was supposed to fail. That was not supposed to work. Why? Why? That was not supposed to work. Why is that working? God. I get the you know, I know the law of demos is that it doesn't work when you're on stream, but apparently I have the opposite problem. When I try and demonstrate something not working, it works just fine. That funny. I really shouldn't find it that funny. What CD did I put in? Did I put in the patched one or not? Yes. Oh, I had to write a patch for my CD. Okay, so this is not the one that will actually install. I need to use a different CD. if this actually works, I might try installing this on stream, because that is too stupid. That is completely too stupid. Because I spent half a day trying to get this to work. And apparently all I had to do was get on stream and then it would work. Because of course... Okay, so XP 2003 OEM. So the problem I ran into was the license key for my Itanium system is an OEM key. The image I had was originally from MSDN, and it expects a retail key. So I had to hex edit the image to accept the OEM key, and it actually does activate correctly. It does find the slipstream files and activates without an issue. So, yeah. Why is this working? This should not be working. The problem is that I'm going to have to turn off the DHCP server on my router to make this work. Well, maybe not. I could plug it into the spare Ethernet jack. But this is getting into bad ideas territory. This is getting into worse idea territories. Yeah, it completely managed to start up Windows deployment services. That should not have worked. That literally should not have worked. Like, if I go into the full... Let's see here. Well, this is considered a legacy install. So if I go into legacy... Yeah. RDS on this version of Windows is very incomplete. I don't really feel like debugging it at the moment. I could actually... Like, I could show what RDS runs like if people are interested, because I'm looking for things to talk about. Like, if anyone has any questions about what we have seen in terms of pinball, let me know. Like, to give you an idea, just going back to my main desktop, just let's go full screen. This is my list of VMs. Like, here's the VM I made for doing all the Outlook Express emails. And these were all the VMs I made for this video. I made a lot of VMs for this video. Like, and I gotta tell you, getting some of these Longhorn builds to install was really difficult. 4051 did not want to install under VirtualBox. It needs fairly specific settings. I didn't have that much trouble with 5041. On the Itanium one was probably the worst. The installer would sometimes fail without warning, and I could never figure out why. The easiest way I managed to get it to work was to do an in-place upgrade after whacking the image with a stick to enable in-place upgrades, because of course it was disabled on that version. Happy thoughts, happy thoughts, happy thoughts. So that's mostly, you know, I want to cover more about Itanium. I'm just not sure what to say about it. Like, we could, let me go back to our desktop. Like, I could install IIS on this. Like, if we go into add remove programs. Yeah, I don't know if you guys can hear it, but it's grinding away. I actually think it's about to fail. Its other hard drive is going to fail. Like, and if you look at this, you can actually see that this is like the full IIS. I don't actually think XP shipped with the full one. Like, because this includes things like the web dev publishing and active server pages, which I don't think was in the stock IIS, or it wasn't in the cut down one that was in XP. So I'm not, I'd have to actually install XP to check. So I'm going to let that install. But if I wanted to take the time, I could compile PHP and MySQL and get it all working. So Joshua Gould, why Why is this having problems? Retry. Itanium was basically a failure. It wasn't 100%, you know, complete failure. More like 95%. It can do floating point mathematics very fast, as well as certain programming languages, rather notably Fortran, can be compiled to do very quick operations. So it did see some success in high-performance clusters, but it didn't last very long because AMD 64 could do this. You could just run a lot more hardware for a lot less money. So, yeah, so we could realistically do PHP and MySQL on IIS. I would have to install Server 2003 or 2008, but we could do it. Yeah. Fortran was actually fairly big. The biggest use case for Itanium, though, was from 2001 until 2005. It got a lot of mileage in use cases that needed more than 4 gigabytes of memory because, well, AMD 64 was announced in 2001 and started shipping in 2003. Software and compiler availability took a really long time. It really wasn't viable until I'd probably say 2008, 2009, when 64-bit AMD 64 was really viable as an architecture. So during that time period, there was quite a bit of support for Itanium, but the writing was already on the wall that it wasn't going to last much longer. To my knowledge, there are no supported versions of PHP for Itanium. I have in the past, just as so the thing I've done with this machine is I have taken this machine out to capture the flags, and I tell people it's a 64-bit Windows machine, and then I leave it on a network. And it causes lots of people to go really crazy because Metasploit doesn't know what to do with it. Because I'm completely saying the truth when it's an Intel 64-bit machine running Windows Server 2003 with no patches. You should have no problem getting a remote shell on it, and nothing works because it's Itanium. So, COBOL requires a different mindset, but it's not really that hard. It's just different. So IIS did install. Where is the IIS manager? Like, remember when I said that I felt that the system was kind of incomplete? I bet if I open MMC and I snap in the IIS panel, because I'm pretty sure that's where it went. Yeah, there it is. IIS snapping. Like I said, I got this, like, this is all from the server version of Windows. Like, I could pull up XP, but I don't think any of this is in pure XP. And even if it was, it should be here as the IIS server manager. Yeah. Itanium's actually, that's not a bad comparison. So there were 4 major operating systems for Itanium. Linux on Itanium was fairly well supported. It was, in fact, the first operating system to run. Microsoft had a very love-hate relationship with Itanium. And Microsoft was very much involved with the AMD 64 work, so they were kind of hedging their bets. HP had both HP Unix, Nonstop, and OpenVMS. I can't show Nonstop because that requires specialty Itanium hardware that only runs Nonstop. I would love to. There are the things I wouldn't give to be able to demonstrate Nonstop on this channel because it's such a fascinating platform. OpenVMS might be doable. I have contacted the current rights holders to OpenVMS, but I haven't gotten a response yet. But there are some possible venues I could try and see if I can get more information out of. Beyond that, let me see here. I might cover HP Unix at some point. The largest problem with HP Unix, and kind of covering Unix as a whole, it kind of blurs all together. Like, if you look at HP Unix, it's, and so forth, it gets a little bit more complicated. Because, like, I could show you HP Unix, I could show you CDE running on HP Unix, but it doesn't look very different from Solaris. And most of the differences under HP Unix are on a technical level. That, and I personally think HP Unix is a pile of garbage, but that's besides the point. Nux, get in contact. Are you in my Discord? Please get in contact with me, because if that PAX works, then I will actually look at doing... I need to relook at the hobbyist PAX licenses to see what I can and can't do. Ideally, I would love to be able to run a C compiler. But I also know GCC was available through OpenVMS's PostX environment. I am not entirely sure OpenVMS will work, though. The problem is that OpenVMS has some problems if it's... OpenVMS has some problems with the graphics card. It really wants the ILO card and not the PCI one. I've heard it can be made to work over serial, which is all I really need. And Toastmaster, so going back a little bit, the problem with HP Unix is that on the surface it looks the same. The problem is that there's a lot of bugs in the standard library. Like, if you try and use any System 5 feature like IPC or shared memory, you will blow a foot off, because they basically haven't updated the core code from System 5 Release 3 from like 1993. It's ridiculous. There should be a link to my Discord in the description, and if not, that's a bug. So, like I said, VMS is something I'd really like to look at. I don't think it's going to be the next video, because I'm going to have to do a lot of research work for VMS. I've used it in the past, but unlike Windows or Linux, I'm really going to have to do my homework to do a comprehensive video on it. What I was actually looking at beforehand, and what I was planning for the next video, was, if we go back to full screen, that can go away. I was actually thinking about doing a video on, let's see here. Why? Oh, there's the closed dialog. Why is everything broken? Why? I'm having one of those days where everything is broken. What I was looking at beforehand, and this was kind of going to be my plan for today, is I've been kind of thinking about doing a video about Unix on the 8086 processor. And we'll let this boot up. So let's bring that up to VM view. Because I kind of always loved the concept that people got the 8086 to run not one, but multiple versions of Unix. And I was seeing if I could get VNix to run. The problem is that VNix makes some assumptions about the hard drive. Specifically, it tries to use what are known as XT attachment commands, and you'll see if and when this actually starts up. The problem I ran into is that VNix's driver development kit is available, and it has the source code to the hard drive driver, and I'm thinking, I don't know if I really want to write... Like, here, you're about to see what happens. So it starts VNix up. And you can see I have XT IDE enabled here, just to make it clear what's going to happen. It's going to start, and then it either hangs or complains about, unknown interrupt, and then it crashes. So I've sort of been on the fence of, do I want to actually make a video on writing a XT IDE driver for a version of Unix older than I am, especially because I'm not convinced that this is the actual problem. I mean, it's not the first time I have ran a driver for this YouTube channel. It's not like we haven't done this before. But most YouTubers don't have to say, so at this point, my hardware wasn't supported, but I had a driver development kit. It's like, it's like, do I really want to do this to myself? I mean, I could do a video on Elks. It's not the floppy drive, or it's not the floppy drive in and of itself. It's a problem with the XT IDE BIOS and more. The source code to the driver development kit is available. I mean, I have it. I was looking at it earlier tonight. Like if I go full screen, I haven't decided if I want to do this video. I have an MFM hard because this would be on the compact portable. And this quickly has the case of becoming like, where did I put it? I have it somewhere. Oh, it might be on the laptop, but let me just see if I have it as a VS Code. No, I have all the stuff I was doing with open firmware hacking, but I guess I only did this on the laptop. So PCM86 box can emulate it just fine. That's not a problem. Sorry, I should be clear that this is not a problem with 86 box. I specifically told PCM to emulate an XT IDE because I want to do this on the compact portable. If I switch the hard drive, to an MFM one, it will start up just fine. And if actually, while we're here, I'm just kind of curious. If I put an IDE hard drive on it, what happens? Yeah. So this is not an emulation thing. I can get Phoenix to install just fine in PCM. I just kind of wanted to do this with real hardware. I mean, just for something a bit different. It's not just a matter of adding interrupts. On XT class machines, if you don't use the BIOS drive interface, there are certain I/O ports that are used. I think it's I/O base 170 and higher. And then you have the ones that are used for ATA IDE commands. They're very similar, but it's not one-to-one identical. Plus, the interrupts they use are different. It's not just a matter of changing some magic numbers and it all magically works. It would actually require quite a bit of work. I probably could use something like the MFM hard drive emulator that Adrian Black demoed, I think it was last week. I could do that just fine. I have an MFM hard drive for the compact portable, but it's only 10 megabytes in size. So it's a little bit too small. If I switch the firmware to use, now that I have the hard drive changed to not use XT IDE, I can just hit the yes button and it installs just fine. I need to do a little bit more debugging to see if I can even fix this. I could either fix it by changing the firmware or change it by patching Phoenix since I have the driver code. So, yeah. The other thing I've considered doing a video about is I've considered doing a video on CPM. I was recently given a 1571 disk drive as a donation, and I picked up a second one off eBay that was not $200. I was amazed. So I actually have two working. Well, I don't know if they're working. I haven't tested them yet. But I have two 1571 disk drives for my Commodore 128. So modulus shift. We were talking about pinball earlier. We can definitely go back to pinball since we've gotten a little distracted. So let's go back to pinball. Yeah. So pinball on Itanium. Definitely correct. I believe David. I keep saying David. It's Dave. I think he said it was test mode. I actually knew about this. And so there is one thing I actually do want to check. So let me see here. Was it test mode before you launch the ball? This is documented elsewhere besides his. But actually, before we do this, Let me pull up my XP. Let's go full screen. I actually want to look at there is something I do want to kind of check. I think it's this VM. It's the VM I did all the side one. Yeah, Dave Plummer. I keep thinking David because my old manager was David, and I know it's Dave. Chat, correct me every time I get it wrong. I'll get it correct. Hidden test is what it was. Because I actually did see that in the disassembly, and I'll pull up Greedra and we'll take a look at it. But one thing I wanted to show, and it should be on here. Yeah, okay, so if I pull up the patched version of Pinball, this was such a weird thing to find. Like, I knew 168.0.147. Why does it want network credentials? You shouldn't need network credentials. So this, I want to just show what happened. I want to show that version of Pinball a little bit more closely. Let's see. Let's go to shared folders. I'll just add it. That would be my guest. That'd be on the guest net. Because I have one folder on Samba that basically has no permissions on it. And that's guest net. So VBox server. There we go. And then here it would be Pinball Research, Pinball IA64. I believe it's Pinball Patched. Yeah, I think that, yeah, this is the broken one. So, watch. Pummer. Yep. Hey, Frame Buffer. Yep, we have an after show. The VOD, I haven't decided if I'm going to publish the VOD on this one. It will be available as an unlisted video. Yeah. So this is the one with the funky ball collision. Let me see here. Can I make this full screen? Well, the answer is yes, you can make it full screen, but that's not very useful. So the other thing that this one did that was kind of funky is if you launched it all the way through to the top of the table, it sometimes really got glitchy. I don't know if it's going to do it. It never did it consistently. Like, see, that time, you notice that I almost hit the ball. It's like, it's such a weird precision issue. And I personally think that this is probably pretty close to what Raymond experienced, and his memory has drifted over. He wrote that article 10 years after he originally debugged this. So, yeah. So, basically, that's what it boils down to. So, Frame Buffer, the thing is that this entire video and this after show is talking about how, with Dave Hummer, his video about pinball that went out today was not the full story. It was not the whole truth and nothing but the truth. I do want to make this clear that I mostly launched this video today because if I didn't launch it today, I would have never gotten any traction on it, because when a large channel and a small channel both make videos on the same topics, the small channel basically gets screwed over. Yeah. So let's go into Greedra. I'm just gonna walk you through how the magic happened. Like, and if anyone doesn't understand what I'm doing, please ask questions, because I do kind of know that I don't always say everything out loud. So, okay. That's a different project. This was me just looking at something randomly. Let me... I need to switch to the pinball project. I don't want to be looking at Veneer. I was briefly taking a look at Windows NT on PowerPC. I think it's pinball. Let's see here. Okay, so it's opening all my code windows. Yeah. So here were the main versions of pinball I took apart. This was XP 32-bit. This was XP X64. These two I have symbol files for, although I gotta tell you, getting symbols to work with Ghidra, oh boy, that is a teeth-pulling experience. Now, one thing I didn't quite understand, and I know both Dave and Raymond said this, is that the source code is rather messy. But because we have symbol files, we can see the full collection of function names and classes that are used. Like, for instance, you can see the basic collision detector. Where is it? It's literally called basic collision. Like, here's the function that completely does basic collision over here. Obviously, I don't have variable names here, but I know enough that this basically takes the ball position, and it's looking through this vector to determine if it's currently collided with any object. You know, you can see it does a lot of iteration, so forth and so on. This should not be that difficult to debug with the original source code. I had some idea what was going wrong even without this. The function, I believe, I actually ended up doing a lot more patching. What was it? A lot more patching to, I think it was called edge collision. This was a few weeks ago. I believe I stubbed out this entire function, and this is what caused the pinball. This is what broke the paddles, because this is the function that controls all this. With the problem of IDA is really expensive but Ghidra been getting a lot better, a lot faster. And what you have to do to get symbols into Ghidra is I had to extract all the symbol files from Microsoft Symbol Package, which meant I had to find the symbol files, which required the Internet Archive, because Microsoft likes deleting anything that's less than a year old. I'm not going to rant about this. I'm not going to rant about this. I'm not going to rant about this. And you can basically see all the collision stuff. Like, with a proper debugger, this should not have been hard to run down. Ghidra has a debugger, but it's not there yet. And in fact, I couldn't even get it working. Even with Ghidra running under Windows, it could not attach to WinDebug. The documentation, it just landed with the most recent update, so maybe it'll get better with time. I just cannot justify the cost for IDA. I really just can't justify the cost for IDA. I'd love to, so yeah. So Petro Pinball, Microsoft shipped the symbols with every I managed to find a full set of symbol files. It wasn't easy, but I did for almost all versions of it. I didn't have them for Longhorn versions, which was kind of annoying. But you can see here, like, if you see here, I don't have any function names. But because I had the function names from other versions, I could manually reverse engineer it. I didn't really get that far with this one. So one of the big things, though, that happens, and this is true for every, let me see here, let me go to entry. So normally, if you know anything about Windows programming, the first function that people tell you get called is called WinMain, but that's not actually the truth. The actual first function you get called is called entry, and this does what's called the Crt Startup. And one of the things that happen in the Crt Startup is that the precision mode for the processor is set. And this is done with a function called Control FP. And then this sets flags this sets x87 flags, because you know, let's just pull up the MSDN article, because that's gonna be an easier explanation than not. So Control FP. Yeah, so grab this, pull this over here. Yeah, so this is the official I want to control the floating point reality. And I gotta be honest, I had to dig through the Windows header files to figure out how half of this worked. So, if we look here, you can see that there are 3 separate precision modes, and it's not supported on ARM or x86. There's 24-bit precision, which I don't even know why that exists. 53, which is the default, and then 64. So, yeah. So what I did is that because I knew that there was a call to control FP in the start of Windows programs, just because when you start disassembling enough Windows binaries, there are some things you just learn. And I knew I could patch out this function. So, yeah, I miss when MSDN used to have some really good information. Like, this page feels like it just never got deleted. But, like, this example, and, you know, I'll drop the link in chat for people who want to follow along at home, shows how the different precision modes change. See, I don't know what 24-bit precision was used for. As far as I can tell, even on the original 8087, it was still 53-bit precision. Well, no, because 80-bit floats were... It wouldn't have been 24-bit precision because it was 53% for the exponent, and then the rest, or for the approximation, and the rest was the exponent. Sorry, I spent a lot of time reading the Intel floating point manual, and then I promptly forgot everything I knew about the floating point manual. Yeah. Floating point numbers on Intel processors are magic. That is the best way I can describe it. So if we take a look in the at inside the Windows SDK, include PC. I don't remember what file it's in, but there is in the header files. CRT float. So CRT float. So if we take a look inside the header files for Windows, and let me make this bigger so you can see it. You can see the default flags for every platform, and I gotta scroll way down for it. Let's see here. Yeah, so so you can see here these are the default flags for 32-bit, and you can see that the precision mode is PC53. On Itanium, it's PC64, although this flag is actually ignored and not used. And then you have the AMD 64 flag, which is also PC64. On older versions of the SDK, this is actually a much more interesting file to look at because you'll see Alpha, you'll see PowerPC, you'll see MIPS. You could also see 64-bit Alpha, which is actually the first version of Windows. Because one thing I noticed when I was looking at Pinball, is that there are some bugs in it, which I'm actually surprised don't crash it. Like, let's see here. No, I need to look at the 32-bit version. Like, if we take a look at object list, add object. Nope, that's not it. So this is the function that crashes under Itanium, and you can see that it actually does some pointer arithmetic, how it does +4, +4, +4. And this actually exists in the 64-bit versions, but it works. On the 64-bit versions, this entire class has been inlined. I don't know if that's because the code was changed or if that's compiler optimization, which is a lot of why I thought it might have been fixed by accident because the pointer arithmetic is wrong. But in the grow function, should be changed to 8 on the correct platform. So I feel like there's probably a lot of pointer bugs. So, which may be partially why objects are misaligned, but it's hard to know for sure. So, Petro, Alpha, so Alpha, Windows NT for Alpha, while it was a 64-bit architecture, Windows NT only ran in 32-bit mode, although it could run multiple applications above the 4 gig boundary in something very similar to what are known as physical address extensions. There was a native 64-bit Alpha port that could do that, but that was never publicly released. But if we look in the header files, I don't know if they're in this one, but I'll check. I think it's called APX64. Let me see here. Let's see here. Is it APX64? Well, we can see it in WinNT, so we'll look there. Yeah. So if we look at APX64, like if you can see here, you have M Alpha and then you have M APX64. Some of these are still even in the Windows 10 SDK, at least last time I looked into it. Yeah. There are some references to it in Microsoft's development tools. I know some of the Whistler betas, in fact, offer options to load. Like, if you... Here, I'll actually give you a real-world example of this. So, if... Like, I spent... let's see. Let's go back to... Server 2003. The VM... Yep, there we go. So let me unlock it. So if we go into printers, you know, those things that cause misery, and I go to add printer, that's fine. I don't want to detect a printer. It's fine. Like, I don't want it to do anything relating to a printer except install. So let's find something generic. Oh, there it is, generic. So I don't want to print a test page. So once I install the printer, and then if I right click it and go to sharing, additional drivers, you can see all the different versions of Windows that were supported. So you see here that we have Itanium, x64, and then multiple x64, x86. On some of the Whistler betas, this would also have a line for Alpha 64-bit Windows 2001. So, and yes, the Alpha port of the Alpha 64 port was used as a test bed because Intel was very late in getting Itanium hardware to Microsoft. Raymond Chen, ironically enough, has an article on that. And he's quoted in quite a few places about that. The port itself has never seen the light of day. And I don't expect it ever will. I'm not even sure the vast majority of it was ever committed to the Windows source code tree. I suspect it was on a branch if it ever did exist. Well, sorry, I know it existed, but so forth and so on. So, but a lot... See, one of the major problems you have with the Win32 API was that it was kind of done as a slapdash manner because it was a place... When you go all the way back to early NT, NT was intended for OS2. It was never intended for Win32. So there are some hard-coded assumptions in Win32 that don't really work well in a 64-bit environment and had to be changed. There used to be an article from Microsoft that had like list of APIs with slightly different functionality because of Win64. So, it's interesting to say the least. Chat reuse Kitsune. I would love to see that get preserved. It does really frustrate me when people hoard betas and development artifacts. Like, I went through so much more trouble tracking down some of these things than it really should have been, because it's so hard to find anything, especially the stuff for Itanium, because people sit on it and they never think about preserving it. It was frustrating and irritating in so many ways. So, let's see here. So, but, yeah. So, yeah, and just as a note, since we're on Win Server 2003, just to show that this is in fact the same build number, 3790, as it is on Itanium, it is distinctly possible that I could probably kit bash the 3790 kernel to run the XP 64-bit edition, although I don't really know how much that would accomplish. From what I've been told, the Windows XP 64-bit edition was remarkably broken. It barely counted as a port of Windows. So I would love to get it running, but I kind of would like to have it running with a real Merced system. So who knows? Copyright law definitely does have a chilling effect on preserving things. I'm just going to be flat out about that. Like, there are certain companies that are very litigious about their products. I don't really think, AutoCAD has come up multiple times in that context. There's a lot more than just them. So those things don't get preserved, and they cause a chilling effect for any sort of software preservation. Microsoft historically has been very laissez-faire on the whole thing, but they are the exception, not the rule. Yeah. There was, in fact, a version of Windows 2000 for Itanium that was supposedly, like, hilariously broken, but it's never been dumped. So I would love to get Merced hardware, because I would love to investigate that particular train wreck for myself. I know from experience that Ubuntu for Itanium was a very broken thing until I got involved, and I probably spent a few weeks patching it on the side. I mean, the architecture itself basically was, this is a bad idea given form. And I don't know where the mistake, where it all went so wrong, but it did. Like, if we look at this version, this was the oldest version of the IA64 stuff I could find. It's actually for Windows 2000. As you can see, it's pre-release 64. This one talks about a lot of errata code, and then there's compatibility stuff. Well, Starlight, this isn't Itanium. Windows XP x64 is not Windows for Itanium. Microsoft's naming scheme is just garbage. I mean, that's the only way to really describe it. So, when it comes down to it, I don't really know what else to say on the matter. Hold on a sec. I just need to check something. Stream settings. Yeah. I haven't decided if I want to have the live replay available when the stream finishes. It's mostly because I don't want people going to this and not seeing the original video, so I may not publish this VOD when all is said and done. But given the unusual circumstances I published this video under, I felt that it was a good idea to have an after show. And I might start doing this for future videos. I haven't decided if I'm going to do that as is. That being said, I'm trying to think what else we should cover here. One of the things that really surprised me the most, and let me go full screen while doing this, is OBS. Where are you? OBS. Nope, that is not what I needed. I needed that. One of the things that surprised me the most was just how remarkably broken Windows Longhorn actually was. From what I can tell, Longhorn, like, this is the AMD 64 version of Longhorn. And if we look at system info, we can see that they were taking some shortcuts with it. Like, this identifies it as XP 64-bit edition. But it's a really, it's like remarkable on how unstable this is. And it's really, this is better than the 32-bit version, which is just Crash City. But from what I can tell, a lot of this was trying to get .NET stuff integrated in the shell. That's a lot why I went to, why they reset the development for it. But, you know, like I said, Pinball works just fine here when it loads. You notice that it's taking a very long time to load. I think part of that is due to the multi-user interface stuff or .NET. I don't know. It also could just be that the AMD 64 compiler was not particularly good in this version of Windows. Yeah. Yeah, they did, they really did help a... Microsoft really had cruddy marketing from 2001 to 2008. Vista was when they finally started getting their act together, but Vista had its own set of problems, and it really wasn't until 7 that the whole thing stopped being kind of a dork age for Microsoft. So what was... We can talk a bit about... Like I said, we're completely... We can completely spitballing this stream because I was not planning on streaming today. This was not something I was expecting to do. So, hold on. I gotta close the window. I don't know if that was being picked up on stream, but someone's having a shouting match in the courtyard outside my building. What was I saying? So, from what I know from what people, from the development information, is that Longhorn was meant to be a very fast follow-up to XP. And one of the big things that I believe they were trying to do was unify the server and client lines. Because originally, so 2000 had professional and server. And from everything we've seen from the XP betas, virtually, which were known as Whistler, there was Whistler and Whistler Server. And then XP's development went sideways. And Whistler Server didn't ship until Server 2003. And from what I could tell, Longhorn was the intent to reunify them. Possibly because you notice that Longhorn also says version 2003. And if we look at a completely bog standard XP VM... you can see I played a lot of pinball in the last few days. Let me go full screen. If you actually look at the bog standard Windows XP VM, it actually says professional version 2002, which made me think that there was plans to do an upgrade larger here. And if you actually mod Windows XP, so at the heart of every version of Windows, let's see here, software, let's see if I can remember where it is, Microsoft, Windows NT current version, where was it? There's a flag in here, I might have to look up where it is, that sets what the addition of Windows is, if it's Windows Server, if it's Windows Desktop, and if you change that flag on the release of Windows XP, it identifies itself as Whistler Server. I am not seeing it here, so I guess I don't think I really want to futz with it. It's kind of annoying to change because you can't do it. Actually, you used to be able to do it in single user mode. I wonder if you can still do it. Yeah. Yep. So my system is a McKinley core. It is upgradable to Madison because it's the same socket. I've never been able to find two Madison processors to put in it. And I would pay a small, and the few times I've seen Madison processors pop up, it is the amount of money they want is absurd. There were a few special spin-offs of XP. There was Media Center Edition, but that was still based on the XP client branch, from what I remember. I don't have it on hand. There was Windows XP Tablet Edition. There was XP Embedded. There's Windows Legacy, Windows Fundamentals for Legacy PCs. There was Windows POS Embedded 2009, and there was probably a few other ones that I can't even think of offhand. Let's see here. Okay. The changing, it wasn't a matter of permissions. The product type registry key is protected via a routine in the Windows kernel. The only way I know how to change it is to back up the kernel, back up the registry, edit the backup, and then restore it. So there are ways, like I said, it can be done. I'd have to look up on how to do it. Oh, yeah. Starter Edition. I forgot about Starter Edition. Like, if we pull up... Let me see. Let me pull a tab off. One of the best... So, one of the best things I actually found, and this was such a help. Like, I just lost chat. Was betawiki.net. Which basically is a list of every single known version and release candidate of Windows. To say that this was useful was ridiculous, because this let me keep a timeline of every major version of Windows. It let me track when something changed. It let me identify the builds I had to examine more in depth. Because one thing you can learn is that if you know how to read Windows version strings, let's see, this one doesn't have an example of it. Let me try here. Like, you see, from what we know about Microsoft's development, and this is true from Windows 7 beforehand, it's not true for 8 and later as far as I know. The first number is the build number, which is kind of like the revision of a trunk. Then that's the branch number, and then that's when it's compiled. And then you can also see when the sub branches, that would be a period here. It doesn't show up on every version, but I did not mean to close that tab. But it really helped me a lot in tracking down how things changed. Like, I was not aware that the first AMD 64 versions of Windows were Longhorn betas. I actually did not know that until I did this. Like, and if we pull up Windows Vista, because for people who subscribe to me on YouTube, you know, it's really impressive. Yeah, so hold on. I'll address that in a moment. So, Katrusi Kits, I'm just gonna say Kitson. I'm sorry. Progman was actually a selectable installation item for both NT4 and Windows XP. Windows 95. You could actually choose during installation to use them over Explorer. It was a well-hidden setting, but that was officially supported until XP, and then I believe it got removed in XP Service Pack 2, but that was an official supported thing. So this was like the biggest help, though, was this list of known Longhorn builds. And there's some really weird ones on here. Like, there's a few builds that only exist for Itanium, and a few builds that, like, yeah, this is it. So Longhorn build 4033. This is like a very strange and very broken build that only works, that only has an Itanium version, but it has Aero in the compositing engine. It's like, what? What? Yeah, because like the build I looked at, because I don't really like going into beta builds. I did it for this video because I had to. So that was not it. It was 40. It was, yeah. So you can see all the pre-reset ones. I think it was it wasn't milestone 3. It was build 40. Yeah, here it is. Nope, that's not it. 4051. Yeah. So the other thing that was really handy about this build is that there was a checked build available, which is really easy for debugging, because originally Microsoft used to ship what are known as checked builds. They were only available to MSDN subscribers. They came on a CD, and they were a version of Windows that had the optimizer disabled and debug enabled. And this used to enable all sorts of weird things, like the check build. In a check build, Solitaire would have an entire cheat menu in it, and there was a lot of other things. So when you're trying to reverse engineer something, a checked build is your best friend. Chartreuse. Okay, thank you. I'll try and remember that for the future. I apologize for getting it wrong. Yep. Is there an Itanium build of 4073? Let's look. I don't think there is. So from what I've been able to tell looking at Microsoft development is that the build lab primarily only did 32-bit builds with a couple of one-offs for AMD 64 and Itanium. The reason that there was all 3 available for build 4053 was that this build was, sorry, not 4051, is that this build was released to the Professional Developments Conference. So this one was publicly released. So let's see here, 4070. Was there an Itanium build? There is actually an Itanium build of this version, which is surprising, actually. So, and it was released at Win HEC 2004. I don't think I noticed this when I looked at this one. It's possible that this build was not available in the archives I had. Let's see when it was. No, okay, I know why I didn't look at this one. Because this build's from 2004. This build was much newer than what I want to. I actually, when I started looking at Longhorn builds, I started all the way here at Longhorn version 3. The earliest code for NT on ARM would be Windows 7, possibly Vista, because the NT kernel was ported for Windows Mobile 7. There is code going back earlier than that. I don't think there's any in XP, although, you know, I'll check the SDK real quick. But I know there is in Windows 2007. I want to say that there was some even in 2000. There was even some in Vista. Let's see here. So looking at, I mean, there are some references at this point, from what I can see looking at the header files, but that looks like it's just the shared, some shared bits between Windows header files and Windows CE. Like if you look in MFC, I believe this version has the source code to it. Yeah, it does. I'm not gonna bring it up on camera. You can find references to the Macintosh build. Oh, look at that. This actually has image file type Alpha 64 in it. Hold on. So apparently, so you can actually see, looking at this code from MFC, That's alpha. Sorry, that's MIPS. That's alpha. That's PowerPC. They actually got really far importing. If they had MFC working on Alpha 64, they got really far with it. So Windows C. I know with XP, or not XP, with CE, at the time, originally CE supported x86, ARM, MIPS, Super H, and originally had PowerPC, but the PowerPC port did not last very long. And over time, it was kind of a dwindling party to the fact that ARM was left. Microsoft just really did not care about CE past version 4. And as someone who was a CE developer, it really shows how much it was on life support for those periods. I don't touch leaked code. I don't look at leaked code. There's a giant quagmire of legal issues with any sort of leaked code. I know that there's a lot of people that look at it and then deny looking at it. A lot of times security researchers will in fact look at it. Like, there was a lot of things that came out when parts of the iOS firmware code leaked, but I don't look at it because of the taint issues. And it's kind of frustrating because there are a lot of answers that I could find just by being able to look at the source code for 5 minutes. The fact of the matter is that if I had the source code to Pinball for NT, the Pinball for NXP, I could have probably solved this in about 2 days. Instead, it was about 3 weeks of reverse engineering work. So, yep. Pivot Man, you're one of the wiki guys. Thank you so much for it. This has been an invaluable resource. I honestly, this was probably the single most useful thing when doing this video. The biggest problem I have is that a lot of the beta builds are sequestered behind paywalls, contributions, and stuff. And it just made things so much harder. So this was the single most useful thing while doing the research for this right now. Yeah, so it's not a matter of software patents. Something like source code would fall under trade secrets because Microsoft never intended the trade secret to be published. It's still counted as a trade secret, as I understand the law. So, yeah. I mean, I've got, it is what it is. I deal with it as best I can. I mean, there are things, I've taken images of a lot of prototype stuff. At some point, I will probably do a stream dealing with Visual Studio, not Visual Studio, Video Source Safe for Solaris and Windows Media Player for Solaris because someone actually found it and sent it to me because apparently watching me die inside is funny. Yeah. I've had people that if I need to get something, I have ways to get it. The whole state of affairs frustrates me. I don't really like going into beta builds whatsoever. It has to be unusual circumstances for me to even go down that road. Like, before I started streaming on the NCommander channel, I used to stream on DEF CON 201, which is the regional DEF CON group. And there's a 4-hour stream of me exploring the I believe it was the September 1991 Windows NT Alpha, and I had the kernel debugger set up on OS 2 debugging it, because that's what it took. The holy grail of things I want to get on this channel, I want to get AUX running on real hardware. I know I can emulate it, and I want to get one of the Power Macs that can run Copeland, because the development tools for Copeland surfaced, and I have them. But there's only one video on Copeland on all of YouTube, and it was by someone who I don't think is a developer. So I would really want to autopsy that train wreck. Like, I would just... There are some things I just like to sit and abuse, and Copeland would be one of them. Stifus, thank you so much for the comment. I appreciate it. The original plan was to kick this out for Monday. Kick this out on Monday. Dave's Garage's video that came out today is the incentive that got this video out the door. I realize in hindsight there were some things I probably should have done better. Like, I could have improved the voiceover. I think what I should do in the future is when I get close to finishing a video is re-record the entire voiceover to be a little bit more consistent, because I can hear it wobbling for want, because this video had so many problems. All right, this is a dangerous thing to do, but I'm going to open DaVinci Resolve while I'm on stream. Like, this is not a smart thing to do, because DaVinci Resolve goes through memory really, really hard. But if we take a look at the project file for DaVinci Resolve, and we are in the Deliver tab, I'm actually going to go to the cut view. I don't usually use this, but you can kind of see the hell on earth. Audio track A2 is the voice track. You can see all the cuts. I think you can see that there was a lot of voiceover files where I had to re-record things or change things, and it really did not go well. I mean, I recorded the initial voiceover on August 11th. I started my research on this. I had not even published my video on Internet Explorer for Unix. This literally was more than a month of effort from start to finish. Like, you can see I was making changes up until 2 days ago, because this is the voice recording I did on the 31st. Mostly just to clean up the audio, so yeah. When DaVinci Resolve is going full tilt, I have seen it take up to 50 gigs of RAM and another 32 gigs of page file, and then crash, because that was not enough for it. I have actually looked at going up to 128 gigs of RAM, because 64 gigs is not enough for DaVinci Resolve, at least how I use it. And God help me if I ever shoot 4K video. Like, yeah. Die video go. There's a couple of other things I've kind of been looking at. I would not mind taking an in-depth look at the Chicago preliminary development kits. I know Michael MJD has looked into these. I know a few others have, but no one, as far as I can tell, have ever looked into the SDKs, and I know a few of them exist. So I've kind of been tempted to go down this particular rabbit hole. I'd also wouldn't mind looking at some of the early NT stuff again. Yeah. No, on my machine, DaVinci Resolve, Chrome does not use anywhere near the same amount of memory as Chrome does. I also been wanting to dig back into Windows 1.0, especially because the compact portable is working. I don't know if it's going to stay working, but it's working. So I'd actually like to do that on real hardware. I've been looking at doing Vizon, which was the first GUI for first GUI for the 8086. So I've got a couple of options available to me. I might just be doing mail call for the next video. I've got a couple of packages that's stacked up, and I need to do something that does not take a month of my life. Holy cow! This last video was the my soul leaked, and I spent 2 days playing Psychonauts 2 to recover. Yeah, one of the other things I've kind of been looking into doing, I don't know when, and I'm open to suggestions on this, is that many years ago, where was it? Microsoft DOS 2.0 source. Microsoft actually released the source code to MS-DOS 2.0. It's not 100% complete. but it is compilable. So I've kind of been wanting to look into this, and even compile it. What they actually published is what's known as an OEM adaptation kit, and it goes a lot of how DAWs was distributed in these days, because it wasn't something you could just buy from Microsoft. So I definitely have been thinking about going into that, going into the GW Basic. I'm sort of been leaning going into CPM, though, for my next video. I've had a few requests to look at CPM 80, but I'm not certain. And chat, if you've got any suggestions, I am all ears. I've also ordered parts for a much more in-depth project I want to do that it's going to involve the 486, but I'm going to need to replace some components before I can do that. And that's about all I'm going to say on the subject. Like, I thought about doing a Linux from scratch video, but there's so many people that have done those that it's like, you know, if I do a Linux from scratch video, I compete with all the channels of 100,000 subscribers that have already done a Linux from scratch video. So, yep. I could definitely. So I couldn't get CPM on. I could run CPM 68 on an emulator. I could run CPM 86 on real hardware. I've got a Commodore 128, which technically runs CPM 80, although I emphasize the word technically there. Linux from scratch, but compiled on Itanium. I could do Linux from 1.0 from scratch from Minix. I've actually considered doing that video. There are certain headaches with doing it, which is why I haven't. But I've considered it. Like, I've actually considered it. The problem is that the 148.6 I have is a basket case. For those who haven't seen it, let's pull up the NCommander's own YouTube channel. So NCommander Professional. No, we are not doing her from scratch. There are some things in life that it's just not happening. So if we do NCommander, really part 3 is the one that comes up first in the search results. So this was one of the first videos I did that really took off, and this entire system is a freaking basket case. Let me see if I can have a picture of actually. This is from before I was using DaVinci Resolve. Wow, I was still using Kden Live for this video. So this is my 146 system, and it's an abomination. I think that's about the one way I'm going to describe it. I did get it working at the end of this, but because it's an ESA-based system, everything about it goes completely wrong. Although I have enough technical information these days that I could write the Linux drivers I needed to get it working. But I really don't want to be writing drivers for Linux. Do it. It's sort of why I've kind of been tempted to pull out the Commodore 128. Mostly because the 128 doesn't require me to write drivers. It's not a very good CPM machine, but it does work. I do have a ThinkPad 380D. It's a Pentium, but it does work. Although I had to write a driver for it because its hard drive was bigger than 500 megabytes. But Linux from scratch on Itanium could be a thing. I almost feel like that should be a Kickstarter. The thing is, I don't want to compile Linux from scratch on Linux. Sorry, I don't want to compile Linux from scratch on Itanium. because no, the amount of electric there when the Itanium is going full tilt, the power bill goes. I'm sorry, that was probably a really obnoxious noise. So, if we were to do Linux from scratch on Itanium, I'd have to cross-compile it. It's not like it's not like it's not like I haven't done this before. Because, like, when I used to work at Canonical, I used to threaten my coworkers that I would import Ubuntu to Deck Alpha. Like, this was a legitimate, don't push me or I will make your lives hell. Because I know I could do it. I just think the only thing that has stopped that from being a project is I don't have Deck Alpha hardware. I don't want to port a full operating system to Itanium, primarily because porting a full operating system to Itanium is... The Itanium boot environment is very strange. The pre-bootstrap stuff is weird. The MMU is basically undocumented, which means Intel was taking notes from Motorola. And the stack management is insane. I'm sorry, that is the only way to describe it. So, Sci-Fest, to give you an idea, when I was still working at Canonical, and this was a long time ago, I got assigned to debugging OpenOffice.org on ARM. And because I'm saying the words OpenOffice should give you an idea of time frame, OpenOffice cannot be cross-compiled, and its build tool is written in Java. And we were compiling on a bunch of cell phones. They weren't a cell phone form factor, but they had 64 megabytes of RAM, and they were ARM5 processors. Build time was 10 days, between 7 and 10 days. Yeah. I actually did briefly get, and the thing is that I actually used the this system. I had an Itanium to ARM cross compiler, and I used distcc, which got the build time down to 2 days. I actually managed to get an image of that hard drive, and it even still has my original files from when I did this. To build OpenOffice.org on Motorola 680 EXO takes about a month and 3 weeks, last time I checked. Yeah, no, you know what? Let me link you the bug, because this was actually a public bug on Launchpad. You know what? I know I've read this before on stream, but if we're going to go down this particular rabbit hole, screw it. Let's go all the way. So OpenOffice.org, Ubuntu Launchpad, and then myself. Here we go. Let's see here. So the original. So I'm gonna. We're gonna read this one along at home, and I swear to God, this is gonna get clipped. I just know it. So the original bug came in. This was probably late 2009. That it would start OpenOffice.org, and then it would die with a COM sun star error. Blah 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 blah. And what was happening here is that internally, OpenOffice has its own implementation of Windows COM. And this is probably the most dangerous sentence I have ever said on this channel. And basically, no one wanted to deal with this bug. Because no one could figure out how this implementation of COM called Uno worked. It was undocumented spaghetti code all the way down. And... You know what? I actually, because this is open source, let's look at the source code. Let's see if I can actually find it. Yeah, here it is. CPP Uno. So basically, the way this would work is that in a COM world, you can send C function calls from one process to another. That's how Windows COM programming works. Sun, or specifically the guys who wrote Star Office, decided that was too easy. They decided to throw C++ classes over a process boundary, including exceptions. For this to work, that meant that the runtime environment had to have a perfect understanding of the C++ API, including the ability to unwind the blasted stack. This is nightmare code. I mean, like, this dynamically does reflection on C++ classes by looking at the stack unwind. Armit, this was a terrible idea. This was a terrible idea all the way through, and I was the poor schmuck assigned to debug it. So the problem was that this bug just keeps going all the way back. So we couldn't completely figure. So what we figured out is on Linux, on ARM, there's a manual mechanism for doing what are called fix-ups, which can handle unaligned accesses that we enabled by default because there's just too many things that break if you don't. And if you early turn off alignment issues, we started getting more useful crash messages. And when my coworkers yes, this is in fact how it still works in the current LibreOffice. This is how LibreOffice works under the hood. And like, if you look at the build environment setup, the entire build system is written in Java. We didn't have a JIT for OpenOffice on Java, on ARM. We had to use what was 0. So, and this all had to fit in 128 megabytes of memory. We couldn't even run the JRE in that. We had to add 4 to 8 gigabytes of swap space to make the damn thing build. This was torture. This was one of the worst programming assignments I was ever given. It's not the oh yes, and then at some point GCC broke and started admitting compiler errors. You know, it just kept getting worse. What ultimately happened, to make a very long, and this is like I mean this just goes down, you know, the rabbit hole goes down further down. So what I decided to do in an effort to make my life slightly less garbage is that when I got this system, it had 10 gigabytes of RAM, which was actually more than most other machines I had. So I had Ubuntu 10.4. It would have been Ubuntu 804 running on this actual Itanium system. And you know what? I've got the hard drive. I actually was able to pull the hard drive image before it shot. So I think I still have the files from this. Let me see if I still do, because we could I think, let's see here, it would probably be STB1. Maybe? Let's see here. Oh, I have to, it's AV. That's what you have to do. There we go, AV. Yeah. So, yes, here we go. So this is the Ubuntu installation that was on the Titanic before I nuked it. And if you look deep enough in it, you can see the Ubuntu cross compiler and the version of SETI at home I compiled. I forgot that was on here. So yes, I took the Ubuntu version of GCC, I built an ARM cross compiler, and then I patched OpenOffice's build system so it would cross compile using the Itanium compiler, and this got my build time down to from 7 days to about 2 days. And I found certain tricks that I could only rebuild certain modules at times, but it was pretty much hell on earth. Ubuntu had an Itanium port because the very first release of Ubuntu was in 2005, and at that time, Itanium seemed like a good thing to have. So, yeah. This was basically the project from hell, though. This was one of the worst bugs I debugged while I was at Canonical. And I had some pretty bad ones. The absolute worst one was mono. I should save that one for a different day. Mono was built with the assumption that there would never be a multi-core ARM processor. Every place in mono that did memory locking said, no op for ARM. There are no multi-processor ARM machines. The solution, and it's the fix that I am least proud of shipping, was we did SICK-proc R on mono that made it only run on one processor. Because you can't have an SMP issue if you only have one processor. That is the fix that I am least ashamed of actually having shipped. And it stayed shipped for about 2 years. Yes, so the contract requirements is that mono on ARM had to work. It didn't have to work well. Nux, the people who wrote mono didn't know such a thing existed. All I'm going to say. Yeah, it was not my hat. We did try and fix it properly, but we had to ship this for contractual reasons. So we basically put a release note is that mono on ARM is unusually slow. That was the sentence that was in the release notes. I would RISC-OS is on my list of things that I would love to review if I ever get the hardware for it. Donations are welcome. Yeah, if you want to see utter hell on earth, I highly recommend looking at my Launchpad account from my time at Canonical. I am still technically an Ubuntu core developer, even though I don't work for Canonical anymore, because the two things are not related. If you want to see pure nightmare fuel, my bug reports are that. Especially the fixed ones. So if you ever wondered how I became so completely me, well, let's just say I have a burned down chart of how I lost my sanity. God, that's a sentence I really... Why do I have bugs against Silo? Oh god, that's right. I actually fixed Ubuntu on Spark. I actually did work with Ubuntu on Spark. Why was I doing Ubuntu on Spark? I'm going to close this because that's like looking at all your worst mistakes in a list. God almighty. NCommander loses his mind. What? So, like you know, people on my chats and my streams think that I'm completely crazy for making a Windows 10 to Solaris 7 cross compiler. No, for me that is Tuesday. That was my normal work week at Canonical, was to do some sort of insane bullshit thing like that and call it Tuesday. NCommander deals with long lost trauma relating to yeah. No, at some point I do actually want to do some videos about my time at Canonical, my time as an Ubuntu core developer, and my time with Debian. There's a lot of baggage in that story. There's a lot of baggage I would need to unpack there. There are some stories that I'm not sure I'm ready to tell just yet. And there are some people I would need to talk to before doing so. Because there were... It didn't end on a good note, is how I really look at it. but there was a lot of good times there. Yeah. So, I mean, it's the thing for me is that Dave is only doing this more than a decade. Most of the stuff with Canonical is less than 5 years or less old. It's too recent before I'm really willing to talk about it. Maybe some of the earlier stuff from my early days, like the ARM bring up, I could go into more in depth. But I'd have to go through a lot of my old emails and put it all into context. I don't do operating system development anymore. The politics, the sheer drudgery of it, it's just not worth it anymore. I mean, I have, and when my health got bad a few years ago, I walked away from all of it. I do a little bit as a hobbyist, but that's about it. So yeah, I put OS Dev behind me, and that's what it is. Like, after I left Mick, the one I'm more likely to talk about, and I need to, this is one I just need to do, is who here, chat, let me ask this. I want to just see how many of you actually know what I'm talking about when I bring this up. And yeah, I should probably fix my camera framing. So I just want to see offhand how many of you actually know what I'm talking about. Camera, work with me. There we go. The answer is my health is not really. So, okay, so after I left Canonical, I ended up going to MC Pro Hosting, which was a Minecraft hosting company. And from there, the owner of MC Pro Hosting launched Beam, which was a competitor to Twitch. Beam wanted to be able to do sub-second latency video streaming in an era when video streaming was a Flash plugin and RMTP. So I devised FTL to do low latency video streaming. And that was what the last major project I did for many years. I then went into freelancing, and then when my health got really bad in 2008, it's stabilized since then, but it's not the point that I can really work. I mean, I have a lot of days where I can't even do video editing. So there's that. Today has been a decent day as far as those things go. FTL stands for faster than light. It was basically doing live streaming over WebRTC, so you could do something like Twitch Plays Pokemon with virtually no latency. And that's a story I kind of want to talk about more in depth. But I'm not sure I'm there yet. Maybe as a live stream, maybe as a video. So, yeah. Things have gone a little better, but it's not been great. So, but a lot of the thing that helps with YouTubing is not being a bump on the wall and actually doing something productive with my time. And the thing is that because I don't have a set... Okay, so apparently that actually worked. Sorry, I got slightly distracted. Because I run completely on my own schedule without a channel schedule, I can work around the health issues much more effectively with YouTube than not. Like I said, it is what it is. So, yeah. Mixer was bought by Microsoft and then shut down. Microsoft migrated its users to Facebook Gaming. So, the story is a little bit more complicated than that. But I think that's a story for another night. I'm really trying to avoid... Last time I said I'm going to shut it down in X amount of time. I ended up compiling Doom on Solaris. I don't want to do that again. So there are some things relating to, like, there are some things I'd love to cover even if I had to sign a non-disclosure agreement. Like the Computer History Museum. If we go to it, Computer History Museum. Eudora source code. So the Computer History Museum collects a lot of archival source code, and they actually have the source code to multiple versions of Eudora, which is something I'd like to cover. But the problem is that one of the libraries that Eudora requires, they couldn't release under any circumstances, or couldn't release publicly under any circumstances. And they talk about that. Where do they talk about that? Why am I getting an ad? Let me get. Yeah, no, I've actually looked at the source code myself. This is it's a complete mess. So one of the big things is that one of the libraries, if I remember correctly, it was the here it is, the HTML rendering engine, and some of the other ones were under a proprietary. Okay, hold on. I'm starting to drop packets. I think Comcast is having issues in my area. Like, the biggest problem was that they had a Qualcomm modified version. Can this stop doing that, please? Qualcomm modified version of this library that they could not distribute it. And what I've been tempted to do is contact CHM and seeing if they would let me do a video on the topic. For those who are newer to my channel, I've actually looked at I did that with their Word for Windows source code. Word 1.1. How do you... Oh, well, that's... Okay, let's try that again. Word 1.1. I guess it doesn't show my own videos when I search for it. There we go. Yeah. So, if you've been a long-time watcher of my channel, you might remember this video. This was actually one of my first videos to really blow up. It was one of the ones that got me to monetization. The problem I had with this is that the licensing for it is very restrictive. You could not use it for commercial use. You were very limited in how much source code you could show. And it's sort of why I never did a follow-up to that particular video. I kind of still do want to, because I could definitely do a follow-up without having to show the source code from the Word for Windows release. But it's those sort of non-commercial, like the intent of the license was not to prevent people from making documentation, but it makes it very hard, because when it says non-commercial use is not allowed, my channel is monetized. That means I get paid for ad revenue. I also have a Patreon. Even if I post a non-monetized video to my channel, it could still be argued that it's commercial use. And that makes my life a lot more difficult than it needs to be. So I've been tempted. So I had a few videos go viral all at once. If we go to the videos tab. Wow, that's actually doing pretty good. 400 views in 2 hours. That's actually really good, all things considered. If we look at the top videos, the one that I've always been most proud about was the graphical file system one. And I actually have a follow-up to this one coming, because this was the first one where I did a lot of research and investigation on. Yeah. The way the license was ran was a little bit iffy. I had two people look at it who are legal matters, and they came to different conclusions on it. The odds are I'd be free and clear, but it causes a chilling effect. But I might be willing to look at it one more time. Even then, I'm still licensed. Sorry. Like I said, it's still complicated. Like I said, my biggest worry is that because my videos take literal weeks to months to produce, that if a video gets struck down, it's a lot of effort down the drain. Like there's a lot of tech YouTubers that basically make a video that is just rambling. Basically what I'm doing right now in a live stream. So I have to be a little bit picky and choosy about my topics because the fact of the matter is copyright law does not favor me. And the thing is that fair use only really applies when determined in a court of law. Yeah. So, yeah. Like I said, I might legitimately come back to this one because there is a lot of stuff about Word for Windows that I want to add. I actually, one of the things I really want to dig into is I want to dig into the Atari ST version of Word, which is a really, really strange thing. Yeah. Well, one of the big things I learned about being at Mixer and being at Beam is learning how to do good live streaming. You kind of just pick it up, but you get a lot of license. It's kind of why, when you see a lot of people's first streams, I don't want to say the term hot garbage, but a lot of people's first streams are people not talking. And I really try to have an interactive conversation, even though effectively for me, I'm sitting alone in my living room. Yes. Rosie, there was a lot of things about Atari ST Word. It was called Write, Microsoft Write, but it is actually the Word source code with a compile flag called Word Junior. I learned a lot by digging through that source code. There was enough content about that on that video to make a full follow-up to. But I really haven't done so because of the restrictive license agreement. So this is why I tend to work on other video projects. There's plenty of other things I can and can't do. I mean, of the project, one of the projects I really enjoy doing, I was always surprised that this one never got a lot of traction, was running DAWs and Windows without a hard drive. It did get picked up much later, but it was kind of a success. So, I've wanted to go back and do more Windows CE stuff. The Jornada video was a lot of fun, although filming that thing was such a nightmare. I mean, I legitimately was... I had to buy the paid version of... this was the first thumbnail that Frame Buffer did for me. He did a bunch of my thumbnails from about here to here. I had to buy the paid version of DaVinci Resolve Studio because I had to use a special plugin to remove screen flicker. I'm more interested in talking about the history of Windows CE and stuff like that. I actually have a copy of Platform Builder on CDs. So I could go through, set up Platform Builder, build the demo x86 stuff. I actually really enjoyed doing the NT4 embedded stream. And while I didn't edit this video myself, and I know a lot of people were not happy that I didn't edit this video, I really enjoyed doing it. I actually have a Toshiba T1000 that loads DOS off a ROM. The display does not work on that machine. Actually, I could go get it. The display doesn't work on that machine, but it does work with an external display. It probably just needs to be recapped. I just have to do it. But I don't really enjoy doing hardware work. if there was one thing I learned from the compact portable, and to a lesser extent the Pi 1541, is that while I can do hardware things, I don't do them well. Like, if a video by, say, Adrian Black, or who else? Retro Recipes, sometimes. I don't always like... I'm not a fan of all their videos, but they've done some good ones. Or even Techmoan. They do hardware a lot better than I do. I do software really well. Yeah. Yeah, so my friend Ciracel, he's the one who has dumped some of these systems on my doorstep. In my closet right now, very literally, in addition to my Commodore 128, which is the only one that doesn't need repair, I have a second compact portable. Knowles Retro Lab, that was one I was thinking of. I have a second compact portable, which I picked for parts. I have a Toshiba T1000. I have a Toshiba T120, which I did manage to recover the hard drive off of, which was not a bad thing to be. And actually, I should see if Venix will run on that system. I had a Toshiba T3020 complete with gas plasma display, but it had some problems, so it's currently at my friend's. And I have a Commodore Plus 4, which I don't know why I bought it, because what can you really do with a Plus 4? But it had the box. So I have thought about... So I've actually done a lot of stuff with Xenix in the past. If you look on the good old blog, I actually did a 4-part restoration series. This was from before I had a YouTube channel. Where I restored and rebuilt corrupted media for Xenix 386 2.2. So I am tempted... I would be very tempted to do Unix on the compact portable, but I would need an MFM hard drive to make it work. And that has so far been a showstopper. I have a single MFM drive that works, but it's only a 10 megabyte drive, which is just too small. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, right now, I mean, the thing is, I really make a hard line about being very high quality with my, I miss my old RAV4, and I miss that bike. It was stolen off the back of that RAV4. I really miss having a standard transmission. I saw that MFM to flash thing. I might drop an email to and see if I can buy one off Adrian. We'll see. Because if I could get that, it would open some really interesting doors. I have thought about doing another retro Linux thing, but it's hard to make old Linux stand out. Like, you know, we did the entire series on soft landing Linux, and I was really proud of this. But when I went to do the Debian follow-up to it, it was really hard to differentiate it after I had the blasted thing installed. So I haven't completely considered what I'm going to go with next. I think the next video is going to be mail call. I had a package sent to me from Computer Reset. I have a Commodore 1571 disk drive I need to test. What was the other? I had a third thing that I kind of wanted to cover. I had a box copy of NCommander come in. So I figure I could film those all in a day or two and get that video turned pretty quickly, because I don't need to do in-depth research for a mail call episode. And then I could do something a little bit more in-depth, because one of the things I have to be very careful about is avoiding burnout while doing this, because it is so easy not to just go so far. Like because now I actually have a copy of the graphical kernel system, I could do a follow-up to this video. But the thing is, I kind of beat the dead horse the first time around. Yes, I know, I have a box copy of NCommander. You're not the first one to make that joke. This is fine. One thing I am looking forward to is, though, I finally... So, if you've been watching my live streams for a while, you might notice that I have this empty space behind me. I finally got a project table on the way to fill in that space, which I'm going to be using for future hardware stuff, as well as a lighting rig, which is going to make a lot of my things a lot more easier to work with. I'm hoping to put the 486 there on a more permanent basis. I also need some token ring stuff for reasons that will eventually become clear. I need a VGA capture card. There's a lot of projects I want to do that I just need to get hardware to do them. The token ring one, I've got 90% of what I need. I just need a PCI token ring card. So, yay. I'm just not sure what I want to work on next. I've kind of been debating doing an overview video on Windows NT 4, talking about the RISC versions, because the most recent stuff I've done on the channel are tech mysteries, but I only can take those so far. I have a token ring MAU, and I have a token ring PCM CIA adapter. I literally only need a token ring network card. Preferably PCI, but I could work with an ISA. I could even take a micro channel one if I can get a working PS2 machine. God, I'm the one person on the planet who needs a token ring MCA card. My life used to be so much simpler before YouTube. Honestly, I should take a look and see how bad. I know microchannel stuff can be a giant, obnoxious PETA to get working again, but I wonder if some of the later 486 or Pentium ones would be that bad. I mean, technically, I could just use 2 ThinkPads because, you know, this was not actually that hard to find. And it works. And I have the MAU. Yeah, I know these streams are me questioning my whole existence. Although this is just a chillax stream. I mean, yeah. Yeah. I had, so, you know, I had an offer of someone to send me an RS6000 microchannel machine, and it fell through. I was really sad about that one. So I'm not sure what I will or will not go down. I mean, I have some AIU stuff. I actually have an 8-bit Ethernet card, which I could do some shenanigans with. The problem is, frame buffer, is that the words, how bad could it be, has never stopped this channel from anything. Like, it has never stopped this channel in the history of this channel. Ever. So, I think at this point, I think we're going to make last call here in the next 5 or so minutes. So, at this point, you know, I'm going to take a look at the comments. Let me make sure there's nothing really nasty in them. And, well, let's look at the comments on the video before we end it out. Because, you know, that's not a bad way to end tonight. So, let's rip this tab over and bring it up. So a lot of people, I think a lot of people are commenting, or people are currently in stream. But man, it's a lot of there's a lot of good information here. Honestly, I'm gonna probably go through and respond to all these at hand. Like, one of the things that I really wish I kept in the original cut of the video, is I had people actually check NT on MIPS. I had people check NT on Alpha and NT on PowerPC, and they all reported it had working pinball versions. I cut it on the basis of time because I was already unhappy that the video was 30 minutes long. Like, yeah. So, definitely. Third chapter on the video is labeled... Did I really do that? I did really do that. Well, this is your bug being fixed in real time. Problem solved. Yeah. I actually have the developer tools to build stuff for the risk builds of NT. So, given a good / bad idea, I could easily compile something for NT on Alpha, NT on MIPS, or NT on PowerPC. I've actually really been tempted to look into the subsystems of Windows NT. That's the OS2 one, the POSIX one, and... what's the other one? I know I'm forgetting one that came in the box. There was... oh, yeah, and the native... well, there was the native API. But I've kind of really been tempted to go down that road. Especially because the OS2 one's been pretty interesting. So the easiest way... there is actually a cross converter for C99 to C89 converter for Visual Studio. This is your best friend. If you want to get a C99 codebase to compile with old Visual Studio, use this and just walk away. This will make your life so much easier. Wait. Yes, the things. I want to say that NewZeed actually already did Doom on NT for MIPS, but we could possibly do it maybe as a live stream. I was planning on live streaming this weekend, although obviously I don't think that's going to happen at this point. So who knows? Who knows? NetHack has actually been cross-compiled. Someone beat me to it, believe it or not. Although I am curious with the C99 to C89 compiler if I could actually get NetHack 3.6 to compile. Because 3.4 still used KNR style C. The newer ones actually use modern C, so it's possible. Nux, no, we are not. So here's the problem with EFI, Itanium EFI Doom. If you know anything about UEFI x86, you know that it uses the graphics, the GOP drawing protocol. That didn't exist on Itanium. It had something considerably less intelligent, which is really impressive when you get right down to it. So... no, there are some things that I am not willing to do. I don't think I can bring myself to torture myself that badly. I will probably figure out what I'm going to do this weekend and then start working on it. Because usually what I do is I release a video, I experiment with a few ideas, and then I start the next video. But it didn't happen this time because... the video had been done for less than 24 hours. Anyway, I think it's 8 o'clock. I think this is a good place to wrap it up here. So I am going to open the floor to final questions, and then we're going to shut it down. So let's set a timer. So 5-minute timer. Okay. All right. And this is NCommander will actually try and shut down the stream at the real time. As a note, if it really, it really does make a difference, if you support the channel over Patreon, like, subscribe, super chat. I have debated enabling YouTube memberships, but YouTube takes a very large cut of memberships. But on the flip side, you could get custom emojis in chat. So we'll definitely see. I would definitely I was a little hoping that Dave's Garage was actually going to pop in at some point during the night, but I guess it's not going to happen. Maybe someone will point him at the video and he will comment, because I would love some Microsoft insider to actually tell me what happened. I can't believe that Pinball got fixed because of a mistake. It had to be intentional code changes, because there's no way the 64-bit precision issue on Longhorn magically solved itself. And if it did, I will be like, what? So, I don't know. Yeah. So, and if those, I guess I could email. I don't even know how to get in contact with Raymond Chen. Like, I don't even know how I would do that. I guess I would have to find his email, but I don't really like cold calling someone unless I really have to. And I don't know how happy he'll be about the fact that I literally spent a video debunking his post. I mean, how would you feel about that? Okay. So, there we go. Yeah. Well, actually, there was one other thing I didn't mention, and I probably should have in hindsight, is that the full tilt pinball collection, that is the full version of Space Cadet Pinball, had upscaled artwork up to 1040, 1024 by 780. So I really do think it may have been a rights issue, or Microsoft just did not want to spend the effort. They could have done a higher resolution one. Yes, I am on Twitter. I am on the Twitter. I thought the comments section went away when they revamped the MSDN stuff. I still don't know how comfortable I would be bugging him directly. So, like, because, if I drop a link to my video on his comments, it just feels like self-promotion and spam. Yep. Yes, there are actual changes to Full Tilt and Space Cadet. If we look at the Ghidra disassembly, I know we're on the clock. God, if we actually look at the Ghidra disassembly, you can see remnants of the original Space Cadet Pinball of the Full Tilt Pinball in. Like, if I pull up Ghidra, yeah, like, okay, I'm actually going to stop the timer and pause it, because I actually do want to answer this question because it's directly relevant. So, stop. So, if we actually go into Pinball, like I said, I don't know how much Pinball changed between Full Tilt and not. I know one of the big differences is that Full Tilt Pinball has multi-ball. And there are references to, I believe there's see, there's no way in the regular Space Cadet Pinball, as far as I know, to get multi-ball. It's just not available. But there's code for it in it. Like, if there's this table set multi-ball function, and if we look at references, show references, you can see that it's triggered as part of Let's see here. Where is this? It's triggered as part of the hyperspace kickout, but it's only changed under certain conditions. I don't think this condition ever goes to true. So it is actually possible that I could patch multi-ball into the table. Yeah. So, yeah, there's other references. Like if we go to WinMain. Yeah. If you go to WinMain, like there's a lot of options here that look at what table it's loading, what revision, like all stuff from when it was still part of Full Tilt and not before it was split out. So like I'm pretty sure you could patch in multi-ball support fairly easily. The one thing I like about Ghidra is that unlike Ida, it doesn't make it very hard to patch a binary. So I don't know. I'm not very good at I'm not very good at Space Cadet Pinball, but there's, like I said, I've always been very confused on why he's said. Like I said, I'm always been guessing it's just because it was 10 years from when he wrote the blog post and to when reality, and when he made the decision to cut pinball. But as far as I can tell, pinball was cut for Itanium because it didn't work. It got fixed by accident. And then it got cut because it didn't fit in with Vista. So that was the pinball question answered. The timer is running again. So, all right. That's the back being snapped. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that video does okay. I am really concerned that because Dave uploaded that video on pinball that it's just going to like get 1,000 views and that's going to be that. But, well, hopefully people will link and send information on that. So I think on that note that this is your host, NCommander. It's been awesome having an after show. I think from this point forward, I'm going to probably do this on most of my streams going forward. Don't worry about cluttering chat. So if you enjoyed my content, please leave a like and subscribe. If you really enjoyed my content, consider supporting me on Patreon. If you want to follow my adventures on real time, come join me on Twitter or let me get the Discord link. All right, there's the Discord link. And unfortunately, I don't know anyone else we can go raid. I am kind of disappointed that YouTube's raid feature is really kind of lame compared to Twitch's. But okay, fair enough. Wait, who says that they don't know I have a Twitter there before I actually shut down? Oh, I guess you two are talking amongst yourselves, so I guess this is NCommander signing out, wishing you all a pleasant day.